thought I would talk about my first bike today.
Come back to me, Daddy, come back.
It's kind of an interesting, stupid story. Okay, well, this guy's not going nowhere, so I guess I'll go. Yeah, I want to take you back to when I was 12 years old. Just a little tyke, right? My brother, my good old brother, he's 15 years older than me. He came dragging in a t350 Suzuki. Now that's a very old bike. It was like a 65 or 69 or something like that, right? I mean, it wasn't in very good shape. I wonder where he got it at. I'll have to ask him one of these days. I think someone gave it to him. But he drug this bike home, and it's sitting in the garage. He only rode it a couple of times. He never was a big motorcycle enthusiast. As I'll tell y'all about a story about my bike he tore up at a later time. But anyway, this bike was sitting around in the garage, and nobody ever used it. Now, about that time, all my friends started getting dirt bikes, because we lived pretty close to the country. I mean, real close, you know, half a mile, less than that actually, just a tiny bit away from the country. And there was this big lot, like 10 acres or whatever, that we'd all ride bikes on. But they wouldn't let me ride their bikes because, you know, they was new and all that kind of stuff, right? And I understood. But I just kept seeing that 350 just sitting there all the time. And you know what I had to do, right? There just wasn't no other choice in the matter. I had to do it. So, when he was in Houston, I lived in Kentucky. He went to Houston because he was a boilermaker and he was off working. And when he wasn't looking, I put me some knobby tires on that 350 and did some shock work on it. Next thing I knew, I had that 350 Suzuki over there in that field, running circles around every freaking body. Because, you know, they had their 125s and 100s, different bikes of that nature. I got them on the straightaways pretty readily. But that bike was heavy. Let me tell you, when you're 12 years old and you're packing around a 350, yeah, it's heavy. Now, I rode the hell out of that bike for quite a few years. Everybody hated it that I'd bring it to that track. But hey, it was my motorcycle. What was they going to do? They certainly wasn't going to tell me I couldn't bring it. I would have punched them in the eye. Just straight up punched them in the eye. Take that, retards. Bam! Yep. They didn't like me. They never did like me. 20 years later, they still don't like me. They're still the cool kids, and I'm still the better kid. Well, in my opinion anyway. I guess, nah. They pretty much have the same opinion because they're all cowards. But so I rode that bike, and then I traded it away. I made the mistake of trading it off for a Honda. It seems that it was like a 125 or something like that. It seemed big, but only because it was tall. You know, it wasn't anymore. It was definitely less powerful than the 350. But I figured that would get me to fit in with their little bike clique a little better. But it never did. You know, it never did. Because that bike was a piece of junk. I got the losing end of that deal. But that's what happens when you make trades in the bike world. You just, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I had a lot of fun with that bike. And that wasn't the end of it. When I turned, I think I was like 17. I'd saved up some money. And some guy had fallen off of his brand new gs500 Suzuki. And he wanted to sell it. He was actually an older guy. And I just happened to have the money. And I went, I mean, it was brand new. And I gave him $500 for it. And I rode it away. I never did get a license to ride a motorcycle. I just rode the motorcycle because I was paying cash for them. Wasn't too worried about insurance. Now I do insure them now and all that good stuff, but back then I didn't. I was a little wildcat. That gs500 was a very fun bike. You can find used ones still around. I think it was an 85 model. I'm pretty sure it was 84, 85. It was like a year old when I bought it. Well, while I'm talking about that, I'll go ahead and tell on my brother. Because I had that bike until I went in the military, right? And my brother, I knew he wanted to ride that bike. I had let him ride it a little bit. And he was like, yeah, I like it. So I let him ride it. And I thought, well, I'll be back and I'll get it later. Well, I ended up being gone a lot more than I had intended. That's just kind of how the military rolls out, right? So about 4 years later, I rolled up on him. I was like, buddy, let me get my bike back. Well, I knew he had had a wreck and broke his arm, but he always made sure he mentioned it to me that he had broke his arm, and that I could tell by the accusations in his voice, he felt like it was my fault because he was riding my motorcycle, right? So he had such a vendetta out against my motorcycle that after he wrecked it, and he didn't hurt it that bad, just a dent, gas tank, and a few other little things, he left it sitting out in the weather for the next 4 years, which dry rotted all the wiring off of it, right? So I just kind of let that bike go. You know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Oh, that's not surprising, right? Nah, I'm not going to turn there. I was going to turn there, but I changed my mind. So a few years ago, I went and bought me this crazy little bobber. And I thought it would be a lot of fun, and it would have been. If it had been made by a better manufacturer, it might have been more fun. But it just didn't turn out to be what I want it to be. So I rode it very little. I mean, hardly none. Like 30 miles. And then I got an idea, well, I need a bigger bike. Screw this little one that I bought for fun, right? So I got me an 1100. And I bobbed that baby out. Well, that bike was 30 years old also. And it has a lot of power. Way too much. It's too tweaky. It's too jumpy. I mean, it'll stand up and run away real quick. So that one's still sitting in the garage, actually, until I decide what to do with it. I don't need all these bikes. You can only ride one at a time. But my son, I got a son and a daughter that I might just get them their license and take them riding with me, right? Make a family group. Have a little fun. I don't have a clue where I'm at, guys. But hey, you keep making turns, you'll find your way somewhere. This neighborhood has really grown. I haven't been in here for years. Many years.